Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program, and happy Thanksgiving. Lots to be thankful for and lots of turkeys in our lives. We're going to talk about both those things today on the Real Estate Guys radio program. Are you achieving everything you want in life? What if there was a time-tested way for you to get everything you've dreamed of? The most successful people in life set goals and keep themselves accountable. But how? The good news is that it's not rocket science. You too can learn the skills and unleash the motivation that will create success in your life. And now is the time. Hi, this is Robert Helms, and I'd like to personally invite you to attend Creating Your Future, the 2016 Goals Retreat, taking place January 8th through 10th in beautiful San Diego, California. This unique weekend has been called phenomenal, inspirational, and life-changing by the hundreds of people that have attended. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com and click events or call 888-489-7723 extension 18. Get your life back on track physically, spiritually, and financially. Attend the 2016 Goals Retreat on the second weekend of the new year. Click events at realestateguysradio.com and register while there's still early bird pricing. This is no dress rehearsal. Live the life you were meant to. Visit realestateguysradio.com or call 888-489-7723 today. Welcome to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms. With me, as usual, co-host and financial strategist, Russell Gray.
Hey, Robert.
It is that time of year when we take time to give thanks. It's a Thanksgiving week, and really that's a holiday celebrated in the United States and in Canada, by the way, but at a different time. Really, this week we want to talk about a very interesting concept, and it starts with this idea that one of the things we are the most thankful for in our lives is the relationships that we have.
Absolutely. You know, a few weeks ago we did Halloween horror stories, and you think about all the bad things that happen in your life and then the lessons you learn from them, right? We're approaching Thanksgiving. It's so obvious to say, to think of all the things you're happy for and thankful in your life. But then you think, there's a lot of things to be thankful for, but sometimes the things you're most thankful for are the things that you learned coming through the harder times.
Yeah.
And so before we were talking about circumstances and situations involving maybe properties and investing. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit more about some of the people and personalities and the things we learn from the way people, what we call, play their cards. When you're in relationships, and this is clearly a relationship business, real estate probably more so than a lot. All businesses are relationship businesses, but real estate especially, just because these properties are not traded on public exchanges, and people interact with real estate in a much different way than they do with other types of investments or products or financial instruments. And so it's very human, it's very emotional, and sometimes it brings out the best in people, and sometimes not so much.
Well, it's also a different market for the fact that the sellers are so scattered. Say I own stock in a company and I want to buy some more stock. Well, what really happens is I'm buying that stock from someone who's selling that share, but I don't have any relationship with that person, nor do I know who it is. It could be the company, depending on the brand. But if I'm buying a property from somebody and it goes well, and they have more property to sell, and I want to buy more property, I can develop great relationships. Same is true for my team, my real estate brokers, my lenders, my attorneys, my tax professionals, all the folks that I develop a relationship with, that when push comes to shove, the relationship capital is absolutely more important than the actual capital.
Well, and that's where I think we talk about this all the time. When you get into this business, it's really important that you understand what business you're in. You're collecting tenants. You're not collecting properties. You're collecting people who are going to get up every day and they're going to go to work for somebody else, and they're going to send you between 25 and 40% of their income to live in your property. And it's the relationships that you have with them, either directly or through the relationships you have with your property managers and the other people who are going to be interfacing with your tenant. You're busy collecting relationships. When you think about your deal sourcing, if you really think about how you find deals in the real estate business, it's you're having a relationship with people who are out there bird dogging, brokers who are out there scouring the market for listings, maybe wholesale providers, people that are out there finding things and then sending them your way. And you're constantly competing to be up at the top of the list. You think about the way loans get done. And, yes, today financing is very very clinical when you're doing conventional financing. There's a checklist. Either your deal fits in a box or it doesn't. Yet there are exceptions. There are times when brokers or loan officers will go to bat for you. When you're doing private funding, if it's owner financing or some type of creative scenario, it's very, very much about relationships. And you can go on and on and on. So the essence of what you're doing in any business is you're collecting relationships and you're building goodwill. And when you take your eye off that ball, you become a turkey.
People are often amazed at the relationships we've been able to get in. And I think the people that are probably the most amazed are us. I mean, how many times do we say, man, how did we get here?
Yeah.
We're very, very, very blessed to have amazing relationships at a lot of levels. And it takes time. The answer is it takes time. People say, well, how do you get so close to this person? Or how come this person knows you? Because we took time. We were interested. We made sure we were adding value first. We were, like Stephen Covey says, seeking first to understand. How can we help? Where can we be of service? Then to be understood. Here's our need. And we approach every market we go into, every vendor we get a chance to interact with a long-term perspective. We're expecting it to be the first of many, many, many times we'll be together with that person, the first of many, many transactions we'll do. And so because of that, we think differently and we act differently. It's the short-term versus the long-term mentality.
Yeah, so it's like this. We spend a lot of time dealing with people and coaching them. Like in our syndication program, we coach people on how to create these relationships and how important relationships are. Most everybody has a experience in life with male-female relationships. It's the one thing almost all human beings have in common. And so it's easy to begin to understand, so it's crude, but just stick with me on this. If you go into a bar, right, and I'm a guy, you're talking to it from a guy's perspective. You go into a bar and you see a girl and you think that girl is interesting for what can happen tonight. You behave a certain way. If you look at that girl and you hear something or see something and decide, hey, this could be the one. This could be the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. Your approach is completely different. And that's the point. And when you have the attitude that this is not a one and done, this is not what can I take, what can I get, how can I satisfy my need, but it's more about, hey, how can I create a lifelong partnership? How can this be mutually beneficial? How can we enjoy each other, if you will, over many transactions, over the course of a lifetime together. And so in business, it's really the same thing. And if you will take that approach, it won't always be perfect, right? I mean, I've been married 37 years and I can tell you, my wife and I don't always get along. So even in a relationship where you have a long-term view, even when you've decided you're committed, even when you do your very best to take the long view, there's just going to be times when it doesn't work out. And sometimes you start out that way and those relationships don't make it. But if you will play that way more often than not, then more likely than not, you will end up with better relationships. And when it comes to business, that means more deals coming your way. More often when it could go either way, it'll land your way. More often than when somebody has an opportunity to say something good about you versus something bad about you, they'll say something good. And you never know where all those little seeds of goodwill, how they will grow up into a reputation that all of a sudden will open up major doors and major opportunities. And you'll, like us, I mean, many times, like, how in the world did we get here? How do we have access to these opportunities and these people and these amazingly accomplished people saying very nice things about us? I was going to say it's a little humbling. It's enormously humbling. And you just try to continue to keep it up and not believe, too much of that. And that's one of the things we've seen in people over the years. They start to have a little success. They make a little bit of money. And all of a sudden they think they're all that. And they forget how they got there. And they act like, hey, I don't need anybody. And everybody should cater to me. And that's one of the biggest mistakes you can ever make in any business, but especially in this business.
So in relationships, you've heard it said that some people enter our lives for a reason, some people for a season, and some people for a lifetime. What we're suggesting is if you treat every potential relationship as though it might last a lifetime, it might not, but it might, you'll act differently. And so today we've assembled a wonderful list of turkeys we have known. So these are, what are we going to call these people? Because most of the words that came to mind, we can't use on the radio. But turkey, it was Thanksgiving week. So these are some turkeys. Now we're not going to call anybody out by name or any of that. But we've had the opportunity over the years to meet lots and lots of real estate investors, some of whom have played those cards you talked about earlier, Russ, very, very well. And several who have not. And so we've decided the folks who don't play their cards well, we're calling those folks turkeys today.
Yes.
And so you're going to be able to learn from the way that people react to situations, things not to do, right? You can learn from everybody. And everyone brings joy to the room. some by entering, some by leaving.
Right.
So, in no particular order, let's talk about the categories, first of all, of folks that we've seen, real estate investors that make short-term decisions. And I think this goes way back to a presentation we did more than 10 years ago about the pen weenie. Let's talk about the pen weenie.
Well, we work a lot of trade shows, and, you look at people that send their best, right? They send their executives, their top salespeople, their top engineers, depending on what kind it is, or the people who are at the highest level of understanding and value in an organization. You put your best foot forward. You spend thousands of dollars on airfare, hotel, booth setup, sponsorship fees, whatever it takes to get in front of people, and you're there to share with people your solutions to their problems. You go because you hope it's a target-rich environment, meaning lots of people who are great prospects for whatever benefit you are offering them, right?
Yep, exactly.
So we stand there, and many times we stand there, we watch people, you have all your little tchotchkes out there, you have your free this, free that. And we have a bunch of pens, right, with the Real Estate Guy's logo on the side of it. So we stand there, and we're waiting to engage people. They come in, and I look over in the corner of my eye, and I see a guy who's looking at me and kind of looking away and looking at me and looking away. Next thing I know, I turn around, and he's got the entire fistful. He grabbed the entire cup of pens, and he's throwing it in his little bag. And I thought to myself, here's a guy who thinks that the biggest value, the biggest takeaway he can get from this booth, not a conversation with me, not looking at any of the things that we're offering or any of the ways we can help him, but if I can just get out of here with $1.50 worth of pens, I have scored.
Right. It's crazy, though. I mean, the other thing about trade shows, people walk down the aisle and they have paid money to come. The attendees paid money to come. They have their badge. They're there to learn. And they avoid the eyes of the people in the booths, right? I watch you at trade shows. You walk right up, you introduce yourself and say, so give me the pitch.
Yeah.
Tell me the story. What is it you're doing, right? I mean, you want to know. They've spent all this time and energy and money to be there. You want to know what they have to offer. You don't go, hey, look at there, and then you grab their stuff and run.
It's a mentality, right? And really, everything we're going to say, all of us have a little bit of this in us.
Oh, yes, we do.
Everybody does, right? And so
that's how we could easily get in touch with all this stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's fear. You don't make eye contact because you're afraid this person is going to somehow convince me or persuade me or to do something that I don't want to do, that's not in my best interest. And when you have that level of fear, and I would consider it to be like kind of a small self-image, right? I'm not worthy of a big win. I don't see, I'm hoping, but I'm not believing. And there's a way you behave when you hope you're going to get lucky, and there's a way you behave when you believe that you are going to be the winner. And those are two very, very different behaviors. When I go into trade show, you know what my mentality is, right? I'm going to meet the right person. I'm going to make a great contact, all kinds of wonderful things. I'm going to come away from this experience with more new opportunity than I can even possibly handle. And I go in with that attitude. When you think that way, you see what you want to see. If you go in thinking that people might take advantage of me and I've just spent so much money, I'm probably not going to get enough value, then you're going to find that. Whatever you choose to believe, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
That's what Henry Ford said, and we believe it. So we call those people takers. They're looking to get the advantage in the relationship from the first minute. I'll use a great example of one of the turkeys. You and I went to see an incredible real estate event with a lot of speakers, and one of the guys we really wanted to see is a guy whose work we were following. This guy seems pretty sharp. We sat and listened to him for an hour and a half, and he was amazing. Great content, and he had a package of CDs for sale and workbooks. And I'm thinking, well, we need to get this, right? We always invest in that stuff. If it's got one idea, then it's worth whatever it costs to get. And he launches into this story about how, unfortunately, because of the recent hurricanes, that he only had 4 cases of the product. And so if you wanted one, you better hurry. So we thought, oh, wow, guess we better hurry. 24 hours later, he's speaking again in a different ballroom, and he gives the exact same, only 4 cases of the product because of the hurricane story. I knew instantly he was a liar, he was dishonest, and he was a taker. He was about taking people's money. He wasn't about adding value. He was about taking. And takers are cancer.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I had a similar experience. I was at an event and I'm out there looking for prospective providers, people that we can point to with the Real Estate Guys radio show that can provide solutions to people's problems or needs. Our audience is interested in finding investment opportunities, getting help with financing, law, insurance, just all kinds of things. Always out there looking for smart people, especially people that can teach. This guy's doing a session on self-storage. I thought, oh, great, self-storage. And I'm sitting there listening, and then he goes into this whole spiel about how he's a rich dad advisor. Well, he doesn't know I'm in the room, and I'm friends with all the rich dad advisors.
Right.
And so I've been around rich dad a long time. I don't know this guy. I've never heard of this guy. So I texted Kenny McElroy, and I sent a text to Andy Tanner, and I said, hey, do you know this guy? Both of them said, never heard of him.
Wow.
We were all set to promote him on the show because his content was great. And this is the thing that baffles me, right? Why do people who have real talent, who have something real to offer, decide to kind of go to the dark side and use these illicit techniques when they don't need it? They don't have to do that. And it goes back, in my mind, it goes back to this concept I mentioned earlier about self-image. It's like somehow I'm not worthy of bringing real value, so somehow I have to cheat or do something illicit in order to get people to really believe in me because I'm not good enough on my own.
Well, see, I would almost call that a different category. That guy is a cheater, not a taker, right? Or a liar, right?
Yeah.
And so you see those people, those kinds of turkeys exist. In fact, we got involved with a gentleman who unfortunately took the short road when he could have taken the long road. This was a guy with a big history of doing a lot of real estate financing. His resume checked out, his references checked out. Unfortunately, he took a shortcut, and he thought that the quickest path to get something was to fabricate a story and ask for a fee. And that's what he did. Now, ironically, he made up a story that turned out to be 80% true, as the best cons are. And he pointed to a particular vendor in a marketplace. Well, it turns out that we still work with that vendor today, 8 years later. So the vendor was perfectly legitimate. The guy was originally legitimate. And instead, he went to the dark side. He went south. Instead of trying to follow the process through and earn a great fee, he tried to take the fastest road to something for him and lost terribly.
Yeah, I mean, and it is, that's kind of goes back to that self-image thing. I think it goes back to the taking that you talked about, you know, and here's a guy that was totally talented, totally credible. You were a credible customer and he had a credible vendor. All he had to do was broker the deal and he would have made a ton of money. I don't know if it's something sick inside him. It's like, hey, I can do this and just get away with something. I don't know if it's like, hey, you know what? I can do 90% of the work and make all the money. So why should I do the extra 10%? You know, we were involved in a relationship with a developer, right? And this guy went out and he had a piece of property, and it was a really interesting story how he got control of the property because it wasn't originally his property. And then he convinced somebody else to come in and do all the marketing at their expense. And so he was clever enough to figure out how to get all these people coming around him and marketing this idea he had, which was a fabulous idea. And it was going to be a fabulous product, and everybody rallied around it. Everybody invested. And then he realized, you know what? All these people have bet on me. All these people have spent millions of dollars because they believed in my vision. But you know what? They've added so much value. I can just sell the property right now, double my money, and take no risk. I'm just going to walk away. And all those people, well, sucks to be you.
Yeah, very short-sighted, and we see that a lot. We're talking today about the turkeys we've run into over the years and the lessons we can learn as real estate investors so we play our cards well and can be thankful for that in the years ahead. You turn to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Live nationwide, you're listening to the Real Estate Guys. Find out more at realestateguysradio.com.
If you love real estate and have always wanted to own your own business, listen up. The Real Estate Guys and their panel of experts want to teach you how to go full-time fast in the real estate syndication business. These next few years may go down in history as one of the best times ever to acquire investment real estate. There are deals everywhere if you know where to look and how to assemble the resources. The Secrets of Successful Syndication seminar will show you how to make big money doing big deals from a team of experts that have syndicated projects totaling more than $1 billion. Don't wait for someone to give you a raise or create a job for you. Attend the Secrets of Successful Syndication and learn how to build a team, raise capital, find deals, and make full-time money in 6 months or less. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events. All the big players use syndication as a way to diversify risk, optimize profits, and earn big money. You can too. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click on events.
Hey, this is Ken Corsini with Georgia Residential Partners. Hey, do you have money sitting in an IRA right now, trickling along just a few percentage points per year? Or do you have money in the stock market or in a mutual fund and feel you're just not getting the returns you could be getting in real estate? Well, have you considered private lending? Private lending is essentially where you act as the bank and you lend money to a borrower. Well, with Georgia Residential Partners, we work with a number of different private lenders that lend money to our business, and we become the borrower and you become the bank. Your investment is always secured with a security deed in first lien position, and the loans are typically short-term, 6 to 12 months at a time. If you've got funds that you want to invest right now without the hassles of actually buying and owning real estate, let me encourage you to reach out to me today to talk about plugging into our business as a private lender making double-digit returns. Just email me at ken@gainvesting.com. Again, that's ken@gainvesting.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Hi, this is Kendra Todd, winner of The Apprentice, and you're listening to The Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Hopefully you're spending it with people you care a lot about. Relationships are magic. They're glue. They're what matters when it comes to our lives. It's what gives us fulfillment. In real estate, it's also what gives us the edge. The best deals I have ever been involved with, I have been the only person the property was shown to because of a relationship. That's a huge statement, but it's absolutely true. You don't find the best deals on LoopNet or Property Line or the MLS. You find the best deals when someone says, hey, I've got a great property to be perfect for you, and knowing what I know about you and about the kind of person you are, take a look at it. And that's huge. So how do you get into those relationships? You play your cards right. And how we can learn great lessons by watching people who haven't played their cards right. And so we're talking about turkeys we've met and some of the things that they do. We've talked about takers. We've had a lot of takers. We had a sponsor of our show. You listen to our show and you know we have commercials. And here's the deal. Those are sponsors. And we like to vet our sponsors. We like to go out and make sure we meet them, spend time with them, believe in their product. It's not a guarantee, but if you listen to our show for any period of time, you probably notice that the ads don't change. That's because these people have been with us a long time, most of them for years and years. But we had a person who was with us for a few years who became an absolute taker, short-sighted, ripped us off, and today is no longer part of our world.
Yeah, that's the saddest thing, because if you're doing business on a relationship basis, and you're going to go through this, right? You find people and you become friends and you spend time together and you learn about each other's families and you care about each other's successes. And then it's really disheartening when you find out that the other person was just playing it that way in order to get your trust so that they could then take advantage of you. And given the opportunity to make something equitable, because people make mistakes, things go sideways, and you can't always say that when you start out with somebody they were bad from the beginning. We talked a lot about this idea with Star Wars coming up. It's perfect, right? Falling to the dark side.
Yeah.
But this idea that you start down a path with somebody and you believe it's going to be a certain way, and you believe there's a certain level of equity in the relationship and a certain level of mutual trust, respect, and care, and I want to see you win and you want to see me win, and we're going to start out on a relationship, and if it turns out to be inequitable at some point in time, we're going to make adjustments to keep it fair because we care about each other and we want to be in this for the long haul. It's the same thing you do in your personal relationships, like I mentioned earlier, right? It's never smooth. It's never linear. There's a lot of ups and downs, but hopefully it's enduring because you learn how to work that stuff out. And so you find these people that just decide, you know what, it's not worth it. I'd rather just take what I can and move on. And, I don't know if you'd classify that a taker. It's hard to classify these things. But I think the lesson for some of these things, it's so obvious. Honor your commitments to the best of your ability. If you can't, then you can't, but it should be for a good reason.
But then communicate openly.
And you try to find a way to make it better if you can. And the challenge is sometimes these things, when people get hostile, then where you could normally negotiate, because we've had people get upset with us, right? They get upset with us, and then they start screaming at us or threatening things. And then we're forced, because of the way our legal system works, to stop communicating when in fact we should be communicating. And the very thing they're getting all upset about, trying to get information or trying to get communication, they actually get in the way of, because it hinders our ability to communicate honestly, because we have to run around with two hands over our rear end. If we say something wrong, don't cross a T or dot an I, there's a vulnerability and you don't trust the other person not to take unfair advantage of that. So you always want to try to keep your relationships open. You want to try to keep them fair. You want to try to add value and receive value. I don't want to receive more from somebody than I've given, but I want to be in an equitable. I don't mind giving more. I don't mind giving first. I just don't want to be taken advantage of.
Well, I think that's the thing, is that there are folks who will take advantage of you given a chance, and that's okay, right? You got to kiss a lot of frogs. And the Real Estate Guys guys have wart-covered lips because we've kissed so many frogs, toads, and salamanders. It's crazy. But at the same time, what's come on the other end of that? Some amazing, amazing relationships. They're worth finding, but it's a needle in the haystack. There's unfortunately a lot of, negative out there. My mentor, Jim Rohn, said there's only really half a dozen terrible people in the world, but they get around a lot, so you got to be careful.
Sadly, they train others.
They do. So you have to approach it with the right thing, but you also get the lesson. The sooner you know. One of the lessons that we got early on is we had a gentleman who we were in a pretty high-level relationship with, and we discovered, accidentally or however these things happen, that he was cheating on his wife.
Right.
And that should have been the end of it. That should have been the huge red flag that said, listen, guys, if he will compromise his primary relationship, he'll throw us under the bus, which he eventually did. And we saw it early enough, at least, that we got out fairly unscathed. But that's everything I needed to know about that guy. Today, I will tell you, I'm a lot quicker to judge when those kinds of things manifest. When I discover somebody's character, I'm a fiercely, fiercely loyal guy, and I have great, great long-term relationships because of that, but I've also hung on too long.
One of the biggest things is that I remember having this conversation. So at one point you had a stalker. Remember?
Yeah.
So you were
not to make light of that, but I actually did have a stalker for a little while.
There was this crazy woman.
Flattering at first.
Yeah, crazy. Which would stand outside. We'd come out of the office at midnight, and she's standing in the bushes so she could just see you. And she would say, "Well, we're supposed to get together." And she always fantasized that somehow on the radio you were talking to her. It was just this crazy, crazy thing.
Yeah, just let's make this clear. I'm talking to all of you right now, not any single one of you. All right.
So I remember we were sitting there one day and we were trying to figure this out, and we were spending all kinds of time and energy trying to understand what's
the logic behind this?
Yeah. And finally, one of our guys said to us, guys, you're wasting your time because she's crazy, and you're not going to there's no sense or rhyme or reason. You're not going to figure this out. You just have to recognize it for what it is. And so the big takeaway on that is, and this is the thing I think anybody listening can get, is when you find yourself in a situation with somebody that is irrational, somebody who's doing things that are either self-destructive or blowing up the relationship, or potentially blowing up the deal or ruining your reputation, and you want to believe, this is the dark side of personal development, right? You want to believe that they can be fixed, that somehow. And unless you're in that business and you're a professional, and we clearly aren't,
no.
Right? We're clearly not.
We can't fix people.
We're here to build a portfolio and do investing and do business and all that. When we meet somebody that's just kind of like a little, I don't know if broken's the right word, but just needs some recalibration, right? That's not our business, right? We don't know how to do that. Then you just have to know, I'm not going to fix this. I just need to get out of it and just move on and hope they find whoever they need, but it's not me. So you just kind of have to know that. And talking about, you're a guy that cares about people, and when you see people, it's like, I want to get out of this clean. And sometimes the only thing you can do is get out, and clean isn't part of it. You just got to get out.
And the sooner you find that out, the better, right? And that's the thing. But the same thing, you can't jump to conclusions too early. It takes a little while, right? You have to watch a person and observe a person. And you often talk about, you learn more about a person when you see them under pressure than any other time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this is hugely important. All my kids are grown now, but I've told them from the time they were little, before you get into these major commitment relationships, watch from afar and try to see who they are when they don't think you're watching. That's number one. And number two, if you're really lucky, and I hope you will be, you'll get a chance to see them under real pressure. Are they faithful? Do they have their, friends' backs? Do they honor their commitments, when no one's looking? You see people that when the pressure's on, they can't take personal responsibility. They blame, they rage, they want revenge, and you can't be around people like that, because when you have that resentment. We're just reading a book in one of our book studies. I believe it was Blair Singer's Team Code of Honor. And when you have unresolved resentment, it manifests in revenge, is what he said. And I've seen that happen, and it's true. So when you begin to see people who behave that way towards other people, to your point about the guy that was unfaithful, you just have to recognize that you could just as easily fall into those crosshairs, and you don't want to. So, when you've seen enough to know that, you back up. Don't move forward and hope you can fix it, or somehow, oh, well, that's just the other guy. It's not going to happen to me. It will happen to you.
Yeah, there's no perfect people. And I'll tell you what, temptation is huge. As we've been more successful in our personal lives and our economic lives and our relationship lives, it's tempting to start to believe your own press. And it's just the worst thing you can do. Never forget your roots, right? We all start in the same place. We all wake up the same every day. And if you have a little bit of success, that's not you. If you have a little bit of failure, that's not you. Stay true to your core. In Stephen Pressfield's book, Turning Pro, which is one of my all-time favorite books, he talks about not getting attached to your results. You're focused on your results, but you can't believe your own press. When you hit a home run in a real estate deal, you know what? A lot happened to make that happen. Some was the market, some was your team, maybe a little was you and your strategy. At the same time, when things go terribly wrong, when the bottom fell out of the market in 2008, it wasn't because you did anything wrong necessarily. It's because there were circumstances, and maybe you had some culpability in it. You just have to know there is no perfect person. You're going to make mistakes. I think our big thing here is, what can we learn from it? Because we've had a lot of people in our life who have made some of these mistakes and then moved on in a healthy way, who said, you know what, I fouled up. It's one of the things we have in our other company. We have this thing that it's okay to screw up as long as you admit it as soon as possible and you call yourself on it. You say, you know what, guys, I think I made a mistake, and here's what I think I did, and it's caused this to happen, and can everyone help me, rally around this problem, and let's turn it into a solution.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting point. When you think about the term humility, a lot of times people think humility is taking the lower place, taking the back seat. Sometimes they think it's about not stepping up. But really, in some cases, humility is recognizing that you are the best person for the job and being willing to step up. For some people, that's hard too, being the leader. It's like, well, who am I to be the leader? Well, the situation needs leadership and nobody else is stepping up. You could be the best person, for the job. Going back to this thing about not taking yourself too seriously on the upside or the downside, when we went through what we went through in 2008, that saved me personally. I'm not going to speak for you, Robert, but for me, going through what we went through and just realizing, okay, you know what, when everything we touched turned to gold, then that was just a couple of guys doing what we do, doing the best we can, and a few things went our way. And then when everything went to garbage, it's like, okay, we're just two guys, we're doing the best we can, and some things were completely outside of our control. Doesn't mean that if we were smarter, we couldn't have seen them coming and taken preemptive steps, but we weren't. Knowing what we knew then, we thought we were playing our cards right. I'm quite confident that somewhere out there on the horizon is another blind side coming. I tell you, I'm a lot more attentive, I'm a lot more alert, I spend a lot more time trying to get a 360, try to keep hanging around with smarter people. But even with all that said, like I was sharing with you off mic, Robert, how I've really been trying to figure out how so many very, very smart people that we hang around with missed the big drop in the oil price. And of course, now that's having ramifications in the financial markets, certainly in the employment markets in oil-rich states like North Dakota and even in Texas, which has been a very robust job market. And so it does have a direct impact on us as real estate. This isn't just us sitting somewhere just waxing philosophical. These lessons where you learn how to listen and then you learn to keep going because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to have bad people come. Sometimes, I remember we had a couple, like 3 or 4 relationships. You came to me one time. You said, man, I've had like 3 or 4 relationships just blow up one right after another. Is there something wrong with me? Is it me? Is there something wrong with me? And that's a totally legit question because it could be. And then you have to be honest. You have to say, okay, well, maybe I have a blind spot. And you go ask 3 or 4 or 5 people, is there something about me that I'm not seeing that this is happening? You have to recognize you're always going to have a little bit of a blind spot. You can't get paralyzed into not being willing to take action, but you have to ask yourself a little bit. And then once you come to a conclusion, no, I think all things being considered, I could have maybe done 1 or 2 things better, and I'll try to remember that going forward next time. But I can't sit in a corner and suck my thumb and lick my wounds. I can't point at other people or even circumstances and go, it's not my fault. It is what it is. And now I just have to start moving forward. And I think that concept of focusing forward when you've been into any of these relationships is where you leave the resentment, the bitterness, the desire for revenge. All that stuff gets left in the past along with the bad experience when you begin focusing forward on the hope and the opportunity and the good people and the good deals that are in your future. And that, for me, has been a way just to keep going no matter what happens in the ups and downs.
It's our Thanksgiving edition, and we're talking about many of the things we're very thankful for and lots of the turkeys we've known. We come back, it's time to play Real Estate Trivia. Your chance to win a prize next. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Real estate investment advice right in your mailbox. Sign up for the free Real Estate Guys newsletter at realestateguysradio.com.
Forbes rated Memphis the best cash flow market in the nation. And our good friend Terry Kerr at Mid-South Homebuyers has been the premier turnkey rental property provider in Memphis for over 13 years. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, Terry has renovated over 750 houses. Real Estate Guys listeners have snapped up hundreds. Discover what these satisfied investors already know. Mid-South's properties are completely renovated with a 1-year warranty and a lifelong rental guarantee. They're affordable, well-managed, and easy to own. Perfect for beginning investors and veterans alike. Get in on the action. Contact Terry and his team via email at midsouth@realestateguysradio.com. All aboard! Registration is now open for the Real Estate Guys 14th Annual Investors Summit at Sea. Imagine spending an entire week with like-minded investors, world-class educators, and real-world professionals. Returning this year are sales legend Tom Hopkins, international developer Beth Clifford, attorneys Mauricio Raould and Jeffrey Verdon, and the author of The Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin. New for this year, commercial mortgage broker and syndicator Michael Becker, personal development icon Kyle Wilson, and Ken McElroy's partner Ross McAllister. And joining us live and in person for his 3rd Investor Summit, Robert Kiyosaki. It all begins February 26, 2016 in Miami, Florida. Visit realestateguysradio.com and click the tab that says Summit to learn more and reserve your spot. This transformational week is like no conference you've ever attended. Go to realestateguysradio.com and click Summit and make plans to spend a week with the Real Estate Guys and an all-star faculty on the 14th Annual Investor Summit at Sea.
Hello, I'm Herman Cain, and you are listening to the Dynamic Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, the #1 downloaded podcast on real estate investing. Thanks for tuning into the show, no matter how you're listening, whether it's on the radio or on the podcast, or somebody recorded it on 8-track tape and gave it to you. Whatever it is, we're glad that you're here, and we're thankful for our amazing listeners. Our numbers keep growing geometrically, millions and millions and millions of downloads. It's absolutely humbling, and none of it would happen without you, our listeners, so thanks so much. We're talking today about what we're thankful for, and really on our list, it's about relationships, the relationships that we're in. We've got a couple things going just supremely well in our business lives, and they're both about relationships and us playing our cards right, and so we're so thankful of that. Before we get back to sharing with you some of the turkeys we've known and how to avoid those, it's time to play Real Estate Trivia. Your chance to win a prize by knowing today's trivia question. When you hear the question, know the answer. You're just going to fire off an email to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Include your name and your mailing address, because if you're the winner, we're going to send you a copy of Robert Kiyosaki's latest book. It's called Second Chance, quite appropriate for Turkey Day here. And all you have to do is have the correct answer and be first in the email line. Last week on the show, we had lots of great guests. We had Mark Skousen, we had Brian London, and we had Peter Schiff. We gave away a copy of Peter's book for this question. Where was the largest gold nugget ever found? Where was it found? It was back in 1854. Well, first let me tell you about the gold nugget. It's 195 pounds and was valued at the time in 1854 at $43,500 in the currency of the day. It would be today worth over $3 million. It was found in Carson Hill, California, above the Stanislaus River. Here's our real estate trivia question for this week. Which country produces the most turkeys? Which country produces the most turkeys?
Real Estate Guys country.
There's a lot of turkey consumed globally, and one country is by far the leader in turkey production and consumption. Which country is that? If you think you know or you want to take a guess.
One hint, it's not Turkey.
It's not Turkey. That's a good hint. It's not the country of Turkey, but there is a country that produces the most turkey. If you think you know, send your answer to trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Trivia@realestateguysradio.com. Include your name, your real name, and your mailing address so we can send you Robert Kiyosaki's great book, Second Chance, if you're the winner. That's today's real estate trivia question. It's Thanksgiving week, and we're talking about some of the turkeys we've had the opportunity to work with over the years, and there's been lots of them, right? We've been blessed by a bunch of great relationships, but you don't get to great relationships without working through the muck.
Yeah, so we had this one young developer. He'd been flipping houses, and he was making a little bit of money, and he had aggregated some family money. Pretty soon, he started having a lot of money flowing through his hands.
Right.
And at one point, somewhere along the line, he confused who the money actually belonged to.
Oh, yeah. Never have that happen. That's bad.
And so there were some things going on in the business where the cash flow wasn't quite working right. It was like, okay, I can borrow from this project to loan to this other project and try to keep things going. And there's certain things you just have to understand about the fiduciary duty you have when you're handling other people's money, about not commingling and some basic things that we teach people in our syndication program.
Oh, yeah, and Don't steal.
And don't steal.
Don't steal.
Yeah, don't steal. But even before that, it goes back to this other guy, like we talked about, the other real estate developer. And this is particularly prevalent, I think, in development because there are such huge numbers that you get your hands on, and you end up having control of this money. So, as an investor, you need to understand kind of the chain of custody and how the money is handled and who gets the money when and how is your money being treated until it's actually going to get invested into whatever the asset is and come back to you. So that's always a good due diligence question. But at any rate, at one point, he discovered that he could put big front-end fees in his development projects. And so he might run a 4-year project where he was going to take $100,000 a year to run the company, to manage the project. It's a multi-million-dollar project. Very justified because he had
makes sense.
Had to pay for staff, had to pay for travel, had to pay for all kinds of things, bookkeeping, updates, reporting, all kinds of things that he was supposed to be doing.
And a project of that magnitude could easily handle that kind of a fee, so that makes sense.
Yeah, but he realized I could get all $400,000 like as soon as I funded the deal, and then not do any of the work and just keep kicking the can down the road until it all blew up, and then I'd just leave. Right? And those are the guys that end up on American Greed. So we had a guy like that in our life, and it was a tragic thing. Again, a guy bright, hardworking, could have done it honestly, and for whatever reason, just lost himself in the temptation of feeling like, now I have the money to get the fancy car, I have the money, I want to get a private plane. Like he hadn't earned any of that yet because you hadn't made a return yet for your investors. Those things were coming if you just would have stayed the course, but couldn't wait, had to have it now.
And part of it was also that believing your own press. Like just because the project has success doesn't mean that you have success yet, right? You got to be patient in this business. Long-term buy and hold real estate investors don't get rich overnight. They build up wealth over time. And even if you decide to add value quickly and develop a project or flip a house and you make a chunk of money, still, that doesn't mean that that money's coming forever. You got to be careful. Just met a gal at an event who flipped a house and made $700,000. That's a pretty good week, right? That's a pretty good, maybe a few months. We like to say if she had a good year that month. But her panic now is being able to do it again. How do I do that again? It's just everything aligned in such a way that the market was good, got it at a great price, got some great vendors to get in there and work, got multiple offers, right? It all lined up. You're not necessarily going to have a business plan on repeating that grand slam again and again and again.
Yeah. I remember we flipped an apartment complex and made like $1.1 million. I remember that.
Yep.
And then I remember a little while later, cash flow started getting tight. And of course, you found the deal and put the deal together. And it came to us.
Which took a long, long time.
I'm like, Robert, go do that again. And you said, well, I'd love to. The thing is, those deals don't grow on trees, right? When you see one, you got to grab it, which you did, and we did it, and it was awesome. But, you can't build a business plan on getting lucky. You have to build a business plan on things that you have a reasonable inventory of the right kind of deals coming in and that you have the ability to do repetitively, right? Things that are largely in your control. Now, if you do that long enough, what we call hitting base hits, every once in a while, somebody's going to throw you the perfect pitch. Everybody's going to be on base. You're going to hit the ball. It's going to go over the fence. You're going to have a grand slam home run. But there is not a single baseball player in the history of the game that has ever gone up and every single time they swung the bat, hit a grand slam home run.
Or hit any kind of a hit.
So you can't put together a game plan that says, hey, every time I'm at bat, I'm going to hit a home run. And so again, it's just, you have to understand that. And then if you did it the one time, like you said, she was overcome with fear. Fear is a debilitating emotion.
Oh yeah.
Right? If you believe you can't, or you start getting into that where you lose your resourcefulness, it can be a very detrimental to your career. And you have to get yourself quickly into an environment like, okay, that was wonderful. It was great. It was maybe a once a decade or whatever. I'm going to go out there and keep doing the right thing and just be happy for getting these little deals. And I'm not going to try to force something that isn't there, because this is where greed factors in, right? You do something like that. And we have this, like we coach syndicators, right? In the syndication seminar. And we tell people, if you get a deal and you return 35, 40% annualized to your investors, like first deal, and then you come back to them with a 20% deal, they're like, well, I don't want that. I want the 45% deal. I want the 40% deal. You just have to keep your money moving. And the same is true whether you're investing in your own account or whether you're investing with partners or you're investing, in somebody else's deal or whatever. Whatever is available to you that is the best opportunity you have at the moment, take it, be thankful for it, and understand that if you just stay in the game, you will have those occasions where the great opportunity comes. And if you're faithful to always being in the game, you'll have the relationships, you'll have the resources, and you'll have the awareness to be able to take advantage of the deal. You can't sit on the sideline waiting 2, 3, 4, 5 years till Mr. and Mrs. Right shows up. You just keep playing the field and working the deal and looking for those opportunities.
Well, and the slumps are going to happen too. You're going to get up and to bat, and you're going to have 5 or 6 strikeouts in a row. That's just going to happen. That's part of the deal. And again, you can't get attached to that side of it and say, oh, woe is me, I'm terrible. No, you just have to have faith and stick in there. And if you invest in relationships, those investments pay dividends. So getting into the relationship makes sense, and then getting out when you can get out. We've been around a lot of great folks, and we still have people in our lives that are just, wonderful investors. They're lifelong friends. You come to the Investor Summit the first year, you're a stranger. By year 4, you're a lifelong friend. That's just how it works. But it takes time, and it takes faith, and it takes a level of communication and being open and honest and vulnerability and being able to admit when you're wrong and all those things that are hard to do, but absolutely essential.
Well, I mean, Robert, you do the goals retreat every year, and it's fabulous. And so people come in there, and husband and wife, business partners, employees, employers, and they have some type of personal epiphany, and all of a sudden they realize, you know what, I'm not in a situation where I really should be, because I've just discovered something about myself in this process. We've had people who have come and they've worked with us or worked for us, and they grow, and it's ready for them to spread their wings and go do their own thing. And we're happy for them.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're happy for them to go do that. It's sad that they leave, and, and so, oh, well, they learned everything they know with us. Well, maybe, but we learned everything we know from somebody else too, right? And we spread our wings, and we went off and did our own thing. I mean, you and I have been partners for 12 years now or something like that. Maybe somewhere down the road in our future, there's like, okay, well, you'd rather go do that, and I'd rather go do this, and maybe that's the way it happened. I'd like to believe, if that day were to ever come, it's hard to imagine, but if that day were to ever come, that we would both be happy for each other's respective success. So the point is that you enter into these business relationships, could be with a property or with a team, an employee, business partner, whatever, and you have the season where you lock arms and you're pursuing common goals and a common mission, and you're all about each other. And then there comes a time where it's time to part company. And if you're in it for the long haul, then you can make that escape. I understand when you're a teenager, I got 6 kids, right? They get to become teenagers where they're ready to spread their wings, and the timing of them being ready to go out on their own and the timing of when you're ready to let go as a parent, most of the time those times don't line up. Right. So there's a lot of tug of war and a lot of bickering. And of course, the kids are just growing into their adult maturity. And so they're dealing with what I call that adolescent phase, where they have to, it hurts to leave the parent, but they know they have to. And so there becomes like this animosity that gets fabricated to give them the impetus to get away. You can't, as a parent, you can't take that personally. You have to recognize, okay, that's going to happen. I know what they're going through, even though it's emotionally hard for me. They're going to get into their 20s and 30s, and they're going to have kids and bills and jobs and responsibilities of their own, and they're going to know what it's like to be in my shoes. I can't expect them to understand me now. I've been where they are, but they've never been where I am.
Right.
And I'm the older person. I have to take the higher road, and I just have to circle back and believe that in time it will come back around. And so that's true in economic cycles. Sometimes the economy treats me well, sometimes not so much, right? It's going to be that way in your business relationships. It goes back to that attitude of just recognizing that you just have to be faithful to show up every day and do the best you can with what you have, and be dedicated to continually trying to be honest with yourself and work on your weaknesses at the same time you're exploiting your strengths and building a network of people that feel good about you to the best of your ability because of how you treated them, and that you're genuinely interested in their success. And I think from my experience, if you do that, you will have way more people that are happy for you when you're successful, way more people that will help you when you're down, kind of like my favorite movie, It's a Wonderful Life. George Bailey would just be out there sowing goodwill, doing what he could do to help the community. And when he got to the bottom of the barrel, he was ready to jump off that bridge and end his own life for $8,000, which I get it, in the time the movie was set was a lot of money. And then everybody came and rallied to him at the end, and he reaped a financial benefit of all the goodwill he had sowed at the moment that he needed it the most. And that's why it's my favorite movie. I love the story, and it's kind of what we're talking about here today.
Going into the holiday season, that's a great movie to watch this season for sure. We're talking about the things we're thankful for in relationships and the clues to make sure we stay in the right relationships. You're tuned to the Real Estate Guys radio program. I'm your host, Robert Helms.
Need help with your real estate investment portfolio? Check out the resources page at realestateguysradio.com.
When the housing market crashed in 2008, San Antonio led the way in appreciation and cash flow. Would you like to have a strong, reliable investment that performs in both up and down markets? Cash flow is the key to successful investing, and we have tons of positive cash flow properties for our ATW investors. Come see why the Milken Institute rated San Antonio the #1 economy in the United States, and why San Antonio is the only major city in the country to have a AAA bond rating. ATW Investments can teach you strategies for building strong, secure wealth with investments starting at $5,000. ATW's patented, proven, and powerful system will do all the hard work for you. ATW is where the perfect market meets the perfect strategy and produces the perfect results in your portfolio. To get started, go to the resource section of the Real Estate Guys website or email us at contact@atw-investments.com.
Hi, this is Patrick Donahoe of Paradigm Life. Over the last few years, I've had the privilege of sharing the services of Paradigm Life with you loyal Real Estate Guys radio listeners through our website, www.beyourbank.com, and also on the annual Investor Summit at Sea. Subsequently, we have seen a variety of financial situations across the socioeconomic spectrum and how everyone, regardless of their situation, would improve their financial lives by following the system we specialize in. As a result of this experience, we have created an online e-learning system so anyone without obligation can learn about the infinite banking concept. This free e-learning program is found on our website, www.beyourbank.com. So check it out today. The website again is www.beyourbank.com.
Hey, this is Phil Collin from Def Leppard and Delta D. You're listening to the Real Estate Guys.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Guys radio program, and we're thankful for you. It's Thanksgiving week. We're talking about relationships, and that's always a fun thing to talk about. It isn't as hard and fast facts as things like the property inspection show we did a few weeks back, those things, right? But it's important. It's obviously the most important thing long term, and it's easy to get it wrong. And so I think we've learned a ton by being in business together, by watching the way people play their cards, and we've had an opportunity to meet a lot of turkeys and see it go wrong. And I'll tell you what, just today, going over some of these things, I'm pretty thankful for the folks who elected to leave when they did. The developer that you mentioned, who we had a separation, and I am so thankful every day. People are like, man, that guy took you for millions and millions of dollars. Yeah, he did. And it is the most valuable thing, right? To be gone and rid of that toxicity is wonderful.
If you have a bad person in your life, the best thing you can have happen is they manifest early.
Yeah.
Right? Because as you continue to grow, the bite they take out of you is just going to be that much bigger. So, it's going to be what it is. And hopefully you have yourself organized in such a way that nobody could take the entire thing out. That's a whole different lesson you learn just about how you structure your affairs and all that kind of thing. But yeah, be thankful when the bad people manifest. Just always be thankful that it didn't happen later and that they didn't get a bigger piece of your heart, a bigger piece of your wallet, a bigger piece of your reputation or network. It is what it is, and I'm glad I learned it.
It has been said that when God wishes to give us an opportunity, he wraps it up in a problem. And if you can learn to get through the muck and the problem, there is gold in there. The best real estate deals are usually somebody else's problem. And we just say there's not a problem properties, only problem ownerships. Not the right property for that person. They're not the right steward of it. Could you be? And if you work through people, which is what we do in real estate and most businesses, then the relationship has to be more important than the transaction. One of our core values in our businesses since we got together and came under the same banner is relationships for life. It doesn't mean we have every relationship for life. It means we approach it as though we would. We get into a relationship with the eyes of this could be a year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years. I could be with this group, this person, this marketplace for a long, long time. And you'll act differently when you look at life that way.
Yeah, there's these old personal development cliches out there that we all know. And the reason they're cliches is because they're truisms that are really you can cling to. Like, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. Can't do a good deal with a bad person. And sometimes it's just good to hang on to those things because they're cliches for a reason. And you just focus on those, get the lessons, be happy that the situation ended when it did, and look at what you can learn out of it, and then how you can go forward the next time, be a little bit more wiser, be a little bit more discerning, And that just comes with experience. When you're young, you're naive, you trust everybody. When you get older, the challenge is, when you're young, is not to be gullible. The challenge when you're old is not to be cynical. And if you can master that in-between space, then you will be able to have good relationships, and most of the time end up with your heart intact and hopefully your wallet intact. And I think it's a lot easier to heal your wallet than it is your heart, but that's just me. And you'll end up having a lot more fun in this business if you focus on the relationships first and solid business models that are fair. And if you do that and work hard, money will happen. And then when the money comes, just understand it's only money, and do what you can with it, to continue to grow it and treat it well, and it'll treat you well. And if you get that lesson out of this episode, it's going to be a great, great lesson for you.
If you're at that point in your career or your life where you're searching for clarity, it's a great time of year to start thinking about that stuff. At the first of the year, every year, we do our goals retreat where we get together for 2.5 days and really, really focus on what matters in the big picture. We call it Creating Your Future, and it happens in San Diego, California, the second weekend of the new year. You can get all the details on our website at realestateguysradio.com. Click on events and come on out to Creating Your Future. In the meantime, enjoy the holiday season that starts here with Thanksgiving, and we look forward to sharing the rest of the year with you in these great episodes. Next week, we've got Ask the Guys, a chance for us to answer lots of the questions you guys have sent in. Can't wait for that. Until then, go out and make some equity happen.
This episode of the Real Estate Guys radio show is brought to you by Paradigm Life. Powerful cash management strategies using life insurance. Learn more at beyourbank.com. Mid-South Home Buyers. Low-cost, turnkey cash flow properties in Memphis, Tennessee. Corporate Direct. Asset protection strategies for real estate investors from attorney and Rich Dad advisor Garrett Sutton. Find these and other great companies under the Resources tab at realestateguysradio.com. To learn how you can expose your product or service to the Real Estate Guys audience, call 888-489-7723 extension 4. That's 888-489-7723 extension 4. Or use the feedback page at realestateguysradio.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week right here on the Real Estate Guys radio show.